Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Midweek Message. For this week, we're continuing our discussion on active prayer, on prayer for people who can't sit still. Um, and so this week, in the book that we are exploring together, he talks about the labyrinth. So I'm going to read from him first. So here we go. Okay, about 15 years ago, if you asked somebody what a labyrinth was, you might hear about a Greek myth or maybe something about David Bowie as the Goblin King in a fantasy movie by the same name, The Labyrinth. Great movie, actually. However, today you can find a labyrinth in nearly every metropolitan area if you're willing to look, and most of them you'll find are in churches. Walking a labyrinth is unlike any other experience I've ever encountered. The fact is, this book began in a labyrinth. For years, as a person who could not sit still, I envied my wife's deep spiritual walk. He says her prayer life was the model of the contemplative. And as I watched her pray, my heart desperately desired to be still and sit in the presence of God. But no matter how hard I'd try to sit still, or to still my body and to focus my mind, in just a matter of minutes, I'd be fidgeting. I can really relate to that. I happened to hear about labyrinths in a conversation at a conference. I was the pastor of a church with a round sanctuary space, and thought a labyrinth would be a perfect addition. It didn't take much to convince the Seattle congregation that this would be a great outreach tool, so we took to designing and installing the labyrinth with excitement. After 9 hours of work, the labyrinth was ready. We dimmed the lights, put on an instrumental CD, and began to pray and walk. I noticed something almost right away. My mind was quiet, and I could walk the labyrinth without having to think about it. I just put one foot in front of the other and followed the path. The further into the labyrinth I walked, the more clarity I had in my prayer. With each reversal of direction in the path, my spirit felt closer to God. By the time I reached the center of the labyrinth, I was able to sit on the floor and pray without fidgeting for longer than I ever had before. I felt centered, at peace, and focused. For the first time in my life, I found myself in what I could only describe as a contemplative prayer. It was with reluctance that I finally stood and followed the path back to the entrance of the labyrinth. But as I slowly finished my pilgrimage, I realized the anxieties I'd brought with me to the pathway had been dissipating into the quietness of the evening. I had discovered something for myself, although I wasn't at all sure exactly what that something was. Over the next several months, I made it a habit to walk the labyrinth at least once a week, just to be in the presence of God. And as I spoke to others who walked the labyrinth, they shared similar experiences. The kind of labyrinth we designed looks a lot like a maze, but it has a significant difference. If you stay on the path, you can't get lost. The path takes you to the center and then takes you back again. There are no wrong turns, no blocked paths, and no decisions about which way to go. Okay, and I'm just going to skip a little bit ahead because it's, again, quite a long chapter. Good, but I know you only want to get the high notes. So he says, little is known about the European cathedral labyrinths, but at one time they were used as an alternative for those who were unable to make a pilgrimage to the Holy Land because of the Crusades. The Roman Catholic Church authorized those who could not go to Jerusalem to alternatively walk a labyrinth in one of 7 cathedrals with labyrinths. And I mean, if you're in Europe, it's easy to find them. And they're beautiful, and they're right on the floor of the cathedrals. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to find where my next little bookmark for you guys. And I think I have somehow missed one. So give me a moment. Okay. Sorry, people. Let's see. Nope. All right. We're going to go ahead. And I might even just stop at this point and tell you some of my stories about labyrinths. And I think I actually will do that. Unless I can get to the... Aha. No, I found it. Woohoo. There's more to walking and praying a labyrinth than strolling merrily along the path. For a meaningful walk, it is important to be intentional about centering, praying, and listening. A labyrinth will provide the framework. Oh, yeah, they provide so centering, praying, and listening. Those three things provide the framework for your time in the labyrinth. People walk and pray labyrinths for various reasons. Some walk to seek wisdom when faced with a decision. Others walk to experience the presence of the holy or to find a spiritual balance in their lives. Still others walk in order to seek healing, be it mental, spiritual, sometimes even physical. Whatever brings you to a labyrinth, begin your walk with a time of centering and focusing on the present moment. Many people start their labyrinth walk by kneeling or standing in prayer a few feet in front of the entrance to the labyrinth. During this time, it may be helpful to close your eyes and listen to your own breathing. Allow the stillness of your body to quiet your mind as you contemplate beginning your walk. When you're ready, open your eyes and begin your labyrinth walk. As you slowly walk along the path toward the center, allow your thoughts, anxieties, stresses, and worries to slide away with each turn. This process of continuing to center is called purgation because you are purging your mind and spirit of unhealthy thoughts or concerns or attitudes. As you walk toward the center, allow your mind to mull and pray over whatever brings you to your walk. If you have a decision to make, ponder your options and lift them up silently to God. If you are trying to achieve balance in your life, contemplate what is unbalanced and offer that to God. The walk toward the center is about unloading your heart of whatever you're carrying and turning it over to God. Some who have studied the labyrinth have suggested that a physiological response to labyrinth walking helps the mind to clear itself of negativity. Because the labyrinth changes your direction 180 degrees every so many steps, it is thought that your mind shifts its focus from the left side of your brain to the right side and back again with each new turn. Further, since you do not have to consciously make a decision about which way to turn, your brain flows freely from side to side without any serious interruptions. It is believed that by the time you reach the center of the labyrinth, your mind has found a natural balance in blood flow and synaptic activity. This balance, some suggest, puts you in a place of heightened awareness to your surroundings, and particularly to your spirituality. Thus, by the time you come to the center of the labyrinth, you are ready to hear from God. Praying and listening should be your two primary activities in the center. Most people indeed discover that when they've reached this point in their labyrinth walk, they have reached a place of balance and peace that allows them to engage more fully the presence of the holy. And that, of course, is the whole point. If you have entered the labyrinth in order to make a decision, this is the time to seriously consider your options. And if a decision is to be made, the center is the place most people find the most appropriate spot for making that decision. Because the prayer time in the center of the labyrinth is often so powerful, many call this time a period of illumination. Those who seek God intentionally in the center of the labyrinth regularly experience moments of incredible lucidity where they feel the presence of God and discover the answers to whatever they have been seeking. Once you feel compelled to finish your pilgrimage, turn and begin the journey from the center to the fringes once again. As you walk, take the time to integrate whatever you have experienced into your life. This portion of the labyrinth prayer is traditionally called union because during this time you have the opportunity to unify the experience of your prayer with the rest of your life. If you've made a decision during your walk, this would be your opportunity to consider how you will be integrating that into the rest of your life. I often find that this final stage of the labyrinth walk is sort of like waking up in the morning. With each step, I slowly become more aware of my surroundings and my thoughts become more task oriented. When I have felt God speaking to me, I contemplate what I've heard and what I'll be doing about it. At this point, many find it helpful to just take a few minutes to reflect. Some people have special labyrinth journals that they use to record their thoughts, prayers, or decisions. Others quietly contemplate what they've just experienced, while some can't wait to tell somebody else about it. Whatever means you use to process your labyrinth walk, take the time to do so. The process will help seal your walk in your memory for a long time to come. Okay, let me just make sure that there wasn't anything else I wanted to share with you. Nope. Okay, I thought so. Very good. Okay, I'd like to share with you some of my labyrinth experiences. I have not always had a good experience. He had a great experience, and I think that's wonderful. I kind of envy him that. The times that I have walked a labyrinth have always been, for the most part, very public. And maybe it's because I'm a minister's kid and I'm painfully aware of the people around me. I have had trouble. I end up just defaulting and walking it because it's difficult for me when there's a lot of other people around to focus on that mental attitude of prayer. I'm aware that there are other people around me. I don't want to bump into them. I mean, and there is etiquette around walking a labyrinth. You don't want too many people in at the same time. You step aside when somebody gets close. I mean, and I'm hoping that we'll be able as a congregation to do a labyrinth walk. There are some in Ottawa that we could actually just all go to, a little field trip. I have checked in with a good dear friend of mine who has a labyrinth to see if he's willing to loan it to us. So hopefully sometime this summer we'll be able to experience it together. This week in church, we're going to do a finger labyrinth, which we're going to include in the bulletin. So and it's a way of just sitting in your seat and walking the labyrinth with your finger. It's actually there are I have to say, I had a professor who had the most beautiful wooden labyrinth. It was just like the size of a large dinner plate or a smallish serving plate, but it was made of this this tight grained maple, and it had been sanded and oiled and beveled so that it was you could just run your finger through it. And it just, if wood could feel like velvet, that's kind of how it felt to me. It was just beautiful. And I find that this can be a more private experience than walking. And, if you're a klutz like me, trying not to bump into the people around you. And so for me, I haven't always had a great experience. One time I was in downtown Toronto and a group of us, a class, we went and walked an outdoor labyrinth. And there were homeless people yelling at us and stuff. I mean, it was the opposite of a good. I mean, and nothing wrong with that. Please don't. That probably sounded worse than I meant it to. It wasn't. They had every right to be there. We had every right to be there. Mostly, I just felt badly for them, but also badly for us and for the people who were really looking forward to it. So, if you're a person like me who is more comfortable in a more private setting, the labyrinth, an outdoor labyrinth in a quiet, private place can be a good thing. The best labyrinth I ever walked was up in Bancroft, in Lamab, a little, the one suburb, the burb of Bancroft. There we have we had wonderful neighbors who ran the post office, and they built one and just let anybody who wanted to walk it. And I walked it several times when there were, very few people around. And man, did I appreciate them doing that, because that was the time where I felt the presence of God, because I didn't have to worry about the presence of other people. And maybe that's just me. Um, I am the kind of person who wants other people to be comfortable, and maybe that's why I wasn't when I did it in a more public, a more corporate setting. So not everybody has a great experience. Some people walk it for, on the regular as a spiritual discipline, and it takes them years to have that sense of sensing the divine. That's okay too. What it is a way to focus, and focusing and it's also a great way to listen. And those are things that make our prayer life so much better. Um, so if you can find a way through movement to focus and to be able to listen for the illumination, the voice of God, the urgings of the Holy Spirit, then it's a wonderful experience. And if it's just a discipline where you're praying, that's a good thing too. I think the most important thing when I read people who have had these wonderful, glorious experiences, I have to tell you, the first thing I would say is don't go in and then be disappointed. Don't go in with any preconceived notions. If you're just there to experience the holy, you might not. And that's okay too. If you're there for a specific question, that's a wonderful thing too. If you're there just as part of your prayer life, all of these, it's all good. It's mostly a way for us to, another tool in our tool belt, in our prayer tool belt, to focus and to find a way to maybe make movement part of our way to be more open, to shut down all the voices in our brains that are telling us all these things. And I mean, I don't know about you, but there are times where I know when I should, especially when I was a kid, when I should be praying and I was thinking, I wonder what we're having for lunch. Hey, did mom make pot roast? I mean, that's partly too being a minister's kid. When you sit through two services plus Sunday school every morning and you get there at about 6:30 in the morning and you leave just in time to get a late lunch around 1 or 1:30, those things definitely go through your brain. And I learned as a kid that it was okay for those things. But as an adult, you also learn to sort of let those thoughts, just let them go. Let them go play in somebody else's yard for a while. So this kind of discipline, prayer discipline, is another way where we can maybe help those voices to uh, be quiet for now. They have plenty of time to come back the rest of the day, and to just be more open to listening for God, because it's easy to pray, it's easy to talk. You've heard me talk, talk, talk. It's not quite so easy to listen. So that is what I hope we'll be able to do together with our figure labyrinths this week during the service. It's a lovely, easy thing to do as a form of prayer, and I hope that we'll be able to actually walk a labyrinth together at some point this summer. So another tool for our tool belt. Until next week, this is Reverend Stephanie signing off. I'm in this together with you every week. If you have any questions, you know how to find me, you know where to find me, and I certainly will see you on Sunday morning. Thanks, everyone. Bye.